So, J. Ruud, what lovable book are we talking about today?
Well, Stacey Margaret Jones, I'll give you a hint. Dust.
Oh my God. No way. That would be Philip Pullman. I don't know what the book is. Isn't it the Dark Materials trilogy?
His Dark Materials.
His Dark Materials.
Yep.
Welcome to Between the Covers, where Merlin Mysteries Series and Robin Hood Mystery Series author J. Ruud and I, Mr. Catherine author Stacey Margaret Jones, talk about one novel from his list of the 100 most lovable novels in the English language each episode. And today, I guessed the correct book on the first guess, which is very weird because that was what I guessed last time and it was wrong.
Yeah. I knew what my next book was going to be, and was a bit surprised that you guessed it a week early.
That is so funny. It must be in the ether.
I guess so.
All right. Tell us the other hints.
The second hint was going to be Yorick Bjornsson.
Oh, if that had been first, I would have been like, "What are you talking about?"
Dang. I should have used that first then. That's the armored bear that Lyra gets to defend her essentially at the end of the first book. And the third one was Damon's.
Oh, okay. I would have gotten that for sure. But dust is kind of the key.
Yes.
The key. Now, is your entry the trilogy?
Yeah.
It's
the whole trilogy.
You haven't done that on anything else. You've picked something, but...
Well, actually, for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I said I was including the whole...
I didn't get
whole
that.
5-book trilogy.
My feeling was you were talking about that novel specifically.
I did focus on the first one
we
because...
talked about that.
Yeah, you couldn't. And I think I'll probably focus mostly on the first book of the trilogy, which is called The Golden Compass.
That's right.
In America, in Britain, when it was first published, it was called Northern Lights.
Oh, interesting. Well, this reminds me, Jay and I always have a book that we're reading aloud together, which I've talked about some of those, I think, in the Chaos Reader series. And when we first started doing that, we started because I had never read The Fellowship of the Ring, so we read those aloud. And then he had never read the Narnia books, so we read those aloud. And then we decided we would go back and forth choosing, and the other person could veto. And then pretty soon he chose like the entire C.S. Lewis science fiction trilogy. And I was like, no, dude.
Well, you picked the Chronicles of Narnia.
No, at first we were doing those because we hadn't read them. But then we were going to go book to book, and you picked a trilogy, and I was like, my brother in Christ, we are not doing that. I think C.S. Lewis would approve of that.
He would approve of that. Philip Pullman would not. As a matter of fact, I mean, interesting that you brought that up. Pullman was educated at Oxford.
Oh, yes.
And... so he was aware of the legacy of Lewis and Tolkien.
Right.
And he writes his Dark Materials essentially in competition with Tolkien and Lewis, especially Lewis.
Rebuttal?
That's a probably better way of putting it.
Okay.
In fact, repudiation.
Oh, my goodness.
Would be a better. To quote Pullman, specifically talking about Lewis, he says, he struggles with big ideas.
Ooh.
I dislike the conclusions he comes to because he seems to recommend the worship of a God who is a fascist and a bully, who dislikes people of different colors and who thinks of women as being less valuable in every way. And Pullman's authority, as he calls him, is the God of Lewis. C.S. Lewis's idea of who God is.
You're saying authority as in...
the character.
Oh, I thought you meant the authority that Pullman uses to assert this against Lewis. I was very confused.
In his Dark Materials, God basically is called the authority.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. I was like, what are you talking about?
He's essentially Lewis's God. and the fundamentalist church that is behind the kind of bullying in the book is the church that believes in that kind of a God.
Okay. We're getting a little ahead. So who else likes these books?
Amazingly, many people.
Well, they were quite popular.
They were very popular.
We read them aloud.
That we did. Okay, the three novels are in America, The Golden Compass, which came out first in 1995, published as The Northern Lights in the UK. The Subtle Knife came out in 1997. And The Amber Spyglass, the third book that completes the trilogy, was published in 2000. And individually, the novels have won a number of awards. Northern Lights won the 1995 Carnegie Medal, which is Britain's award for the outstanding new English language book for children or young adults. And in an online poll in 2007, it was voted the #1 Carnegie Medal winner in the award's 70-year history.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
So that's a fairly impressive accolade. The Observer listed Northern Lights as one of its 100 best world novels. And Time magazine listed The Golden Compass, its American version, as one of the 100 best young adult books of all time. The Amber Spyglass won the prestigious Whitbread Award in 2001. It was the first children's book ever to be awarded that prize.
Yeah, that surprised me that it won the Whitbread. That's interesting.
And it was also recently included in The Guardian's list of the 100 greatest novels of the 21st century as number 6. In 2003, the full trilogy was ranked as number 3 in the BBC's Big Read poll.
Right.
The favorite book in the UK.
All right.
It came out as number 3.
Is he British?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, can you do a down and dirty summary? Can you earn the Harps of Glory this week?
Okay, let's see if I can
Last
do
week
it.
you did not.
Well, I thought I did very well last week, considering what I was handling. And this week is even more difficult because...
Remember, the down and dirty summary is you're in an elevator and the person says, "What's that about?" That's what the down and dirty summary is.
I'm going to tell you.
All right.
His Dark Materials is a trilogy, and it's a fantasy presented as a kind of coming-of-age story of two children. Lyra Belacqua, also known as Lyra Silvertongue because she's so adept at lying. She's the protagonist of the first book, The Golden Compass. Will Perry is the protagonist of the second book, The Subtle Knife. And the two of them move through a series of parallel universes, culminating in a visit to the kingdom of the dead and the realm of the authority or God in the third book, The Amber Spyglass.
Okay.
So there's a very down and dirty summary.
All right. So what is lovable?
So am I getting that?
Oh, sorry. Harps of Glory. Harps of Glory.
Thank you very much.
That was very good.
Thank you very much.
So what makes these books lovable? How do they earn a place on your list?
They are a fantasy. They create a fantasy world. Actually, they create a fantasy multiverse because there are at least 4 different worlds that are in the books, but each one of them is a kind of believable, and it makes you feel like you are really there. I think that's particularly true in the first book.
I remember that.
Lyra's world is a world that's a lot like ours, but it has some strange things going on. It seems kind of like a Victorian England at first, but Oxford University is run by the church, and the Pope is in Geneva, and he's the Pope of this kind of fundamentalist church. There is a general oblation board that is kind of almost a Gestapo-like organization. As Lyra goes north to try to find her father, Lord Asriel, actually it's her uncle, who she finds out later on is her father. But I guess that's a kind of a spoiler, but not bad.
I love how you say the thing and then you're like, oops.
Oopsie. But no,
Spoiler alert should
she
come
needs to-
first. Alert.
she's
Pull
going
out.
north to find him. She gets captured by the General Oblation Board, which is actually run by, as it turns out, her mother. So she's, these two opposing forces are her father and mother. But she wants to find her father, and she wants to release the children who've all been disappearing and are being held in this kind of prisoner of war camp almost, where they're running experiments on them. But to help her, and this is the part that I think is the most delightful in the whole first book, there are these armored bears. There's actually a nation of armored bears.
That was the best thing about the movie.
And the one who was their king was overthrown, and she kind of finds him. He's down and out. He's like a drunk who's lost everything, and she convinces him that he can still go back and be king if he defeats the guy who overthrew him, and he needs his armor to do that. They've stolen his armor, and he can't be the person that he is. He can't be an armored bear without his armor.
Right.
It's like his soul that he wears on the outside. And that part of the story is just really, really fascinating. But
compelling.
the thing that's probably in the entire trilogy, the element that's the most lovable, I think, is the daemons.
I was going to say what I remember the most, what I've taken with me. I don't remember a lot about the plot. It was a kind of definitely a good and evil, a good versus power story. But I just really remember the daemons. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because that is what makes the book lovable.
That's sort of Pullman's crowning innovation. I think. In Lyra's universe, every human being has a companion spirit. That's called their daemon, and it takes the form of an animal. The daemons of the adult humans are static; they don't change. So the daemon of Lord Asriel, Lyra's supposed uncle, in fact her father, is a snow leopard, and the daemon of Mrs. Coulter, who's the head of the Oblation Board, and in fact is Lyra's mother.
Is that Nicole Kidman in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is a golden monkey.
Right.
But the daemons of children change with the moods of their humans.
Mm-hmm.
So in the novel's opening chapter, Lyra's daemon, Pantalaimon,
I remember that name.
is a moth.
Oh, boy, what a
but then
bummer.
he changes to a mouse,
Okay.
and then he changes to an owl, and he goes on to change into other forms in the course of the story.
It's interesting because children's, not just their psyches, but their brains are changing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the daemon kind of reflects the physical growth of the brain of a child.
And then when you're kind of cemented into
Right.
your who you are, it doesn't change anymore.
When does it stop? Because I think our brains, scientifically, which I know is not the same thing as what he's doing, but our brains don't really stop changing until mid-20s.
Yeah, it's before then. It's kind of at adolescence.
Okay.
A little bit after that.
Interesting.
But the daemon it's not a separate being. It's literally part of the person's psyche.
Yeah.
That takes a form external to the body.
Right.
So most readers will think of it as the person's inner self kind of made manifest.
So it is a physical being.
Yeah, you can see other people's daemons and what they're doing.
Right.
You would never touch another person's daemon.
That's far too intimate.
Yeah, except that does happen in the book.
Of course, because
because of the evil people.
People suck.
Yeah.
Somebody's always going to push things way too far.
And if you've got a lovable pet dog or cat who seems part of your heart, you will definitely relate to the daemons.
Well, we have, because we have lost dogs that were especially daemon-like, and it is like somebody has come in and scooped out part of your soul
Yeah.
and taken it away.
Yeah.
So we understand that. Yeah, that's an interesting innovation and a interesting thought experiment.
Yeah. And it doesn't come out of nothing.
Right.
It's
It's not a meaningless gimmick.
you know, the word daemon in ancient Greek was a word for a lesser deity or a guiding spirit, and it appears in Plato's Symposium. There's a priestess named Diotima who describes a daemon as a kind of intermediary between human beings and God. In the Apology of Socrates, Socrates claims that he has a daemon that warns him in the form of a voice if he's about to do something wrong. So it's kind of conscience-like. Most readers interpret the daemons as self-consciousness or the true nature of the soul. The Stoic philosophers sometimes use daemon to refer to reason itself. And Pullman's concept may also owe something to Carl Jung's concept of the anima.
I was going to say, because that was the concept that's part of my novel.
Yeah.
Is the manifestation of something part of your own psyche.
Yeah, the anima is sort of the true soul, and it's an anima for men, it's an animus for women. So a male has a female anima,
Right, okay.
a female has a male animus, and that's what happens in the book. Lyra, who's a girl, has a male.
Right, because it's wholeness.
Daemon.
It makes a whole.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And Mrs. Coulter's daemon is this male golden monkey. So the daemon is one of the really innovative creations.
Yeah, I remember after we read that, I felt like I was missing something. Like, why don't we have that? But I think we do feel that we do have that in our dogs. Sometimes. All of our dogs are very precious and very special. And I think they are their own selves, but they do animate parts of our lives, I guess, our family life.
Yeah.
That would be empty without them doing that, being there and being themselves. That's interesting. So, you aren't choosing the Golden Compass. I mean, do you feel like people really have to read the whole trilogy, or?
Well, they don't have to.
You're their boss.
The story's incomplete. I mean,
Okay.
the Golden Compass ends in a way that it's like a cliffhanger.
Oh, okay.
To be continued.
Right. Okay.
So you're not going to know the end of the story until you read
Okay.
through the third book.
Okay. Like we were just binging The Pit. And every hour ends with a cliffhanger. So it's he knew what he was doing. So it isn't real. They aren't as much standalone. Could you pick up the second book without having read the first and feel oriented and?
I think you'd be pretty confused.
Yeah.
Actually.
Okay. So they really are.
Yeah.
Maybe they should be packaged in one volume.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you certainly can buy them as a three book package.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean in one.
Yeah, it'd be a very long book.
Right. But that in that way conveys the way the story unfolds.
Yeah.
It really is one narrative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What is it that you find particularly lovable about it? How did it make its way on your list?
Oh, the daemons are
That's your favorite part.
the daemons and the armored bears.
So I guess it's like Watership Down. You just like animal stories. But it sounds like, you mentioned this earlier, that the theological foundation must be intriguing to you.
Oh yeah, very. Actually, Pullman, when he was at Oxford, he focused on Paradise Lost.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, we mentioned Paradise Lost a few times.
Yes.
Because it does.
It's foundational.
It is foundational, and it does make its way into all kinds of novels. But this is very consciously a retelling of Paradise Lost. In fact, the title of the whole thing, his Dark Materials, comes from a quotation from Paradise
Oh,
Lost.
I guess I forgot that.
It's in Book 2 of Paradise Lost, where Milton describes the shapeless forms in the realm of chaos, which are destined to remain chaotic unless the Almighty Maker them ordain his dark materials to create more worlds.
Oh, okay.
So it's a reference to the multiverse in the book's action, that God has used the chaos to create all these many worlds. But it's a retelling of Paradise Lost with a little bit of Blake thrown in. Blake is the one who famously said Milton was of the devil's party without knowing it.
Oh.
Because he made Satan the most compelling character in Paradise Lost.
That is a clapback.
Yeah. And in his Dark Materials, God basically is not at all admirable. And Lord Asriel, who's kind of leading the rebellion against the authority, against God, is the satanic figure, but he's the protagonist, really, of the whole thing.
Is he a Jedi Knight?
Kind of. And Will and Lyra are destined to be the new Adam and Eve.
Oh, interesting. Like a redo, reset. Interesting. Well, didn't you see Pullman at Shakespeare and Company?
Yeah, when
in
we
Paris?
were in Paris.
I was gone by then, but I think you had stayed on and you went.
Yeah, I went to. He gave a talk at the Shakespeare and Company in Paris. There were hordes of people there to listen to him.
Yeah, that's not. They don't have rooms that are very big.
No, it was outside.
Oh,
in a
okay,
giant
good.
Tent.
Okay, good. Because I was like, how is that going to work? You are a Lewis fan, am I correct?
Oh, yeah.
So what I like about it is that you can enjoy the work of people who maybe disagreed with each other. Or well, Lewis didn't disagree with Pullman, right? Did he know him?
He wouldn't. He was not around anymore.
Right. But Pullman disagrees with Lewis.
Yeah.
Does Pullman say that Lewis is of the
devil's party without knowing it?
Yeah.
No, because the devil, as Pullman writes him,
right,
is the good guy, but he's the guy who's rebelling against the God.
Right.
Of
I understand.
Lewis.
I understand. That's interesting. I just think that's one of the things that's enjoyable when you have an open mind and are open to experiences in fiction, is that you can read them, you can understand them, you can agree in part or disagree in whole, and still enjoy the work. It's not a threat, right? It fills in things.
Yeah.
Right? Or it creates nuance, perhaps, for you that you didn't see before, which enriches your understanding of things you've previously read.
Yeah.
And puts you in maybe deeper conversation with it, which I think is, very important in terms of developing our own minds and our self-awareness as readers and thinkers. So
yeah, this will definitely give you a different perspective.
Did he have a view on? Did he express a view on Tolkien? Because I know Tolkien's subject matter is different, but
yeah. Well, Tolkien, of course, Tolkien objected to, I think, some of the same things in Lewis that Pullman does.
Yeah,
because he thinks that Lewis is way too didactic.
Right.
He thinks that you don't just come right out and say,
yeah. Right.
This is the gospel truth. And Tolkien was just as devout a Christian as Lewis was.
Right, but different.
But there's no Christianity per se in Lord of the Rings.
Right.
But there's certainly good versus evil there.
And good versus power.
Yeah. But Pullman thought that Tolkien was too simplistic, basically, that everything was, the good was always good, the bad was always bad, and he didn't.
You said that
things were black
Pullman
and white.
thought Tolkien was too simplistic?
Yeah. That it's too kind of black and white.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because they're all of the Narnia, Fellowship of the Ring, and his Dark Materials are all considered YA, fantasy.
Yeah.
So they're all writing in a similar genre.
Yeah. Although Pullman didn't think of himself as writing a YA
Right.
novels,
Right.
even though his characters, his sort of protagonists,
Right.
are
Young adult.
young
teen.
adults,
Yeah.
because he has all this theological stuff that's probably way more than
Right.
than you would find in any typical YA novel, and it's very helpful, I think, to actually have read Paradise Lost to follow all the things
Right.
that are happening in his dark materials.
But that also makes it literary because you can read it as a teen for the plot, and you
yeah.
can read it in your 20s and get more out of it, and you can read it then again in your 40s or 50s and get even more out of it
Yeah,
because of the things you've read in the meantime or the things you've learned and begin to understand.
yeah,
So something that he may not have written for them, but having characters that age may mean that readers that age are going to find a way into it
yeah.
that they wouldn't otherwise. So
That is definitely true.
fascinating. Well, why might someone not like
Okay.
this trilogy?
That is an easy question.
Okay. It's almost like you knew I was going to ask it.
Now, Pullman once said, "I've been surprised by how little criticism I've got for his dark materials. Harry Potter's been taking all the flack. Meanwhile, I've been flying under the radar, saying things that are far more subversive than anything poor old Harry has said. My books are about killing God."
Oh, I got the chills.
And it's true. When you get to the Amber Spyglass, the authority
Don't spoil it.
is presented as this aged, infirm character that you got to kind of wheel around in a wheelchair, and he's turned his universe, his multiverse, over to his lieutenant, whose name is Megatron. He's the authority's regent, who probably is supposed to be Christ, unless it's the angel Michael, who's in
Maybe.
charge of God's troops in Paradise Lost.
Maybe.
But Pullman is not shy about saying he is an atheist.
I was going to say, is he talking about God, that he believes that God is this way, or that he is against the way Lewis understands God or portrays God?
The latter.
Okay, because
he doesn't
he's
believe
an
in God at
atheist,
all.
right? So he doesn't believe in God, so
but-
he's against the
Yeah,
portrayal
this,
of
this,
God. Okay,
This way that Lewis, and particularly he's thinking of fundamentalist sects of Christianity, that their conception of God deserves to be
ended.
killed.
Right. Interesting.
And so, a lot of people will not like this book.
Yes, that's
And
true.
You really better know that before you read it, or
Well,
you're
I
just
think-
not going to be very happy.
I do think, though, that people, let me just speak for myself. As someone who has made a choice to believe, right? Faith can be a choice, right? You don't have to be passive about it. As someone who has made a choice to believe, reading this book was not threatening to me. Like, I believe, right?
Yeah.
But I think that there are things to understand here in terms of how some people talk about God and the God they want you to believe in.
Yeah.
And that is valuable.
Yeah, Pullman is not attacking God,
Right.
and he's not attacking belief in a supreme being per se, even though he himself doesn't believe in him. His grandfather, who raised him, was an Anglican priest. And he doesn't have any complaints about his grandfather
Right,
or his
right,
grandfather's
right.
theology. His target is the churches that he thinks bully their parishioners.
Well, it sounds like his target, I guess I shouldn't put words in his mouth. What I am understanding is that his target is how people use faith as a form of power against others.
Yeah, churches that deny science and deny human rights
Right.
are
Right.
his specific
Right.
targets. And so a lot of progressive Christians have actually come to his support,
Yeah.
including
You.
notably
including you.
Including me, but also including the former Archbishop of Canterbury,
There you go.
Rowan Williams, who acknowledged
An Anglican.
yeah, he acknowledged that the trilogy was not an attack on Christianity, but rather on repressive churches.
Right.
What would the church look like, Williams asked? What would it inevitably be if it believed only in a God who needed unceasing protection? It would be a desperate, repressive tyranny.
Right.
So,
Right. It's an attack on the power, right?
yeah.
Yeah, instead of the idea of love and
Yeah.
a just society, which we
Yes.
talked about last time.
Indeed.
All right. Well, where are you ranking?
Well,
this
I'm going to put this a little
Trilogy.
lower on my list because there are so many things about it that I think many people would not find lovable.
Oh, okay.
So I'm putting it at number 37,
Oh, which is last
which is last. It's
for now.
for now. It's right below The Complete Tales of Edgar Allan Poe.
Right. All right. Well, that was fascinating, and this was a long time ago that we read it
Yeah.
aloud, and all. I just still remember the Damons. I'll
Can't
never forget
the
them.
Damons. Okay. Well, then it's probably time for Chaos Reader.
Right. Well, I also finished the book of poems I was reading, so I reached to my poetry book pile. Now, I do not know where I got this book, if it was on a list. It looks like it was a library book, so it must have, I either got it, somebody got it for me on Amazon used, or I got it from a library sale. I have no idea where it came from. It's called Foamy Sky, the major poems of Miklos Radnoti, who was a Hungarian poet, Jewish poet. He died during World War II. He was being marched to a camp, I think. And the final poems of his life were pulled out of his breast pocket of his suit after his body was exhumed from a mass grave.
Holy mackerel.
So that is a dramatic story. And I do not know how this came to me. If you gave me this book, thank you. Please let me know. Anyway, I just started it, so I can't talk too much about it. I think I've read 2 poems, but I did read because I was kind of looking at how did this come to me? And his personal story is, of course, very compelling, and I'm really eager to get more into it because he obviously has a lot to say as he observes kind of the burning of his world. So on that up note,
Cheery note.
we would like to thank our producing sensei, Jerry Bruno, and all of our listeners. Thank you very much for listening. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all the things. And we will see you next week. Between the covers.